Hello, everyone, and welcome to this month's edition of Wild Wednesday webinars. My name is Paul Kiewit. I'm the Executive Director of MIPA. Wild Wednesday webinars are brought to you by MIPA, OPA, TISPA, ASPA, PPAW, PPA Chicago, PPA Midwest, and UMAP. And we're really glad you could join us today. Today's webinar is worth one CAS credit. At the end of today's webinar, you'll be directed to a survey form where if you enter your PIN number, I will submit that to PPAI for you. If you're outside of MIPA and you don't know your PIN number, you can get that from your regional executive director. You'll notice on the left side of the screen, there's a chat box. If at any time during Kirby's presentation you have any questions, feel free to type them in. I'll be monitoring it and we'll bring them to his attention. He will be leaving some time for questions and answers at the end of his presentation as well. This presentation is being recorded. When it's rendered, it will be available on the MIPA website under Wild Wednesday webinars and also on the MIPA Facebook page. And also I distribute it to all of your local regional executive directors. Stay tuned next month on April 27. We're bringing you Charles Dugan. Charles is going to be speaking on anything is possible, and this guy can prove it. He's run, biked, and swam several Ironman competitions. And I don't know if you're familiar with an Ironman, but that means that he swims something like 2.5 miles in open water, then jumps on a bicycle and rides it for 112 miles, jumps off the bike and goes and runs 26.2 miles. So if he says anything is possible, I'm sure he means it, and I'm sure there's a great business application for it. I'm going to take a little executive privilege here and also mention that in MIPA land, if you have an opportunity to get to Troy, Michigan, which is just north of Detroit, on April 14, we're having profitable distributor operations, where we're going to have Sage, ASI, Common SKU, and Distributor Central all displaying and presenting what their capabilities are. So if you have ever wondered and wanted to compare side by side, price to price, free versus cost, and so on, it's a great day. And at noon, we break over to the Restaurant Champs, where we have 5 multi-line reps who will be presenting their products. So very worthwhile day, April 14 in Troy, Michigan. Having thrown in that free ad for MIPA, I'm now going to turn it over to our presenter today. Kirby Hasseman has been creating a great name for himself by using social media, and he's going to tell you how you can do that as well. Kirby, I'll let you take it from here. Take it away, Kirby.
Thanks, Paul. Really appreciate the opportunity to be here to talk to everybody today. I'm really excited about this. This is a fun topic that I'm super excited about. It's near and dear to my heart, and it's how I've certainly built the brand that I have within our industry, and I want to talk to you about that. So putting the social in your media. Now, the first thing you may want to know is, who am I? Who am I to tell you what I'm doing, what you should be doing? For those who don't know, Kirby Hasseman, I'm the president of Hasseman Marketing, so I'm a distributor in our industry. We also have a video production company. We do social media consulting, full service marketing. I'm an author. I've written a couple books. The one that probably makes the most sense for you is Delivering Marketing Joy, which is about doing promo right. So that's who I am, and I'm going to get through a ton of concepts and content here today. I'm going to go pretty fast, and I want to leave time for questions. The other thing I really want to mention is Bill Petrie from Brandivate helped me put this together, so I want to at least give him a shout out, because he and I have done this in Vegas and in other areas together, this presentation. So that is who I am. Now, you may be asking yourselves, why are you here? Hopefully you're looking for CAS, MAS points. Maybe you're looking for something to do over lunch. Maybe you simply think there are not enough social media sessions. And, obviously it has to be better than working. Now, one thing I do want to let you know is this is not social media 101. I'm not going to be telling you how to update your profile picture on Facebook. Not that there's anything wrong with those presentations. That's just not what this is. We're going to take a little bit higher level on this. So this is, I don't know if it's social media 201 or 301 or 401 or whatever, but this is a little bit more high level. And again, I want to leave time to for you to ask questions after this is over. So I'll be moving quickly, and please let me know questions that I can help you with at the end. So it's time to step up to the microphones for you, your sales, and your business, because you are a media company. And what I mean by that is, in today's world, we're all media companies. If you're a car dealer, you are a media company that also sells cars. In our industry, I say we are media companies that also distribute promotional products or sell promotional products to distributors. And each of us need to get a better understanding of that. Now, as you see here, Marriott has gotten that. They are a media company that also has hotel rooms. They have become storytellers. How have they done that? They've done it through their global content studio. So they've started a TV show. They have a short film. They have a personalized online travel magazine and virtual reality. And the cool thing about it is they've started this by telling stories that, of course, promote Marriott, right? And that was the initial goal of this, and that was what they're trying to do. But what's been interesting is they've actually created revenue. They've turned millions in direct revenue from becoming a media company. And what that means is they've turned storytellers into marketers. What do I mean by that? I mean that they've actually worked and partnered with people who are already in the storytelling business and partnered with them to help Marriott tell their story. And so if there's nothing else you take away from today's presentation, I want you to take away the fact that you as a salesperson, you as a distributor, you as a supplier, you are a media company that also does promotional products. So what does a media company do? And hopefully just by the simple graphic that you see on the screen, you understand that media companies tell stories. Media companies create content, and that's what you as a media company need to start doing. So really quickly, I know in a lot of presentations, a lot of webinars, people say, put your phone away, put away, all this stuff and concentrate. I don't want you to do that. I want you to help me with a social experiment. We'll create a little hashtag here, and I will tell you there is a typo in it. I'm going to blame Bill Petrie on that, even though it's not his fault. But it's hashtag social in media WW webinars. And so if you're on Twitter and you have any aha moment, you hear something and you're like, okay, that's interesting. Go on Twitter, tweet out the quote, tweet out the comment, tweet out whatever your lesson is, and use the hashtag social in media WW webinars. And what you can do about that, if you are on Twitter on a regular basis, one of the coolest things you can do is search hashtags. And then you can join the conversation and start to engage with people. And we'll talk a little bit more about that later. But if you have an aha moment today, I would absolutely love it if you tweet whatever that is out and then hashtag social in media WW webinars. Got it? One of my favorite authors, marketers, one of the godfather of marketing himself, if you will, Seth Godin, says, marketing is no longer about the stuff you make, but about the stories you tell. If you were in Vegas, or I believe he was in Expo East as well, Seth is about telling stories. And that is what we're going to talk about a little bit more today. Okay, so maybe you're saying, all right, storyteller, what does that mean? So what I would say to you is your job as a storyteller, your job as a media company is to create stories through content. Why? Why? Because by creating content on a regular basis, you set yourself up as the expert in whatever niche, in whatever market you're trying to do it. How? The way you do it from a how perspective is to essentially create content that's of value to your customers, your prospects. And the way you find that is you look for questions that they have been asking you that you can answer. I always my rule of thumb is simply, if I've been asked a question more than twice, that probably should become a piece of content, whether it's written, whether it's video, whether it's a podcast, whatever. And so that's how you kind of quickly create topics for content. Good versus bad. I want to talk to you a little bit about that. Good versus bad. Good is content that creates value. It creates entertainment. It gives information. Bad content, as a rule, is content that is looks like it's supposed to create content or value, but it's really just a sales in disguise. So if you're creating content, you want to create value from the perspective of creating content that brings people value, that elevates you in the industry as an expert, not necessarily buy from me, buy from me, buy from me. We're going to talk about leveraging media, whether that's through blogging or video or podcasting, and I'm going to dig into each of those areas and talk about how you can do that, why each of those venues might make sense for you. And then we'll talk about delivering that content, that message to your audience, whether it's through cross promotion, whether it's through social media. So those are the things we're going to cover today on the webinar. Hello, my name is Content. So why should you create content? Let's dig into that, right? So content are the stories that you are asked to tell. Now, I have said for some time now, and those who know me know this, I believe we have entered. When I first started saying this, I would say that we were entering. I think we have entered what I call the give first economy. And what that means is the companies, the salespeople, the entrepreneurs, the organizations that provide the most value up front are going to win long term. How do you provide value up front? Well, it's absolutely fantastic because one of the ways that you provide value up front is through promotional products, right? By its very nature, promo products happen to be a great give first economy tool. You provide a gift, a marketing piece up front, the rule of reciprocity kicks in, you have given first, then you have the opportunity to ask. But you can also do that through content. But it's key that you give first. You provide value. You provide articles, you provide information and entertainment to your clients, your prospects, so that what happens is you build up credibility, you build up trust, you build up integrity with your audience so that when you ask, they're open to you asking. I mean, at the end of the day, I always say, nobody signs up for a Facebook and likes a page on Facebook that's a business page and never expects for that page or that company to go for the sale. The problem is most people, most small businesses, most entrepreneurs on social media are going for the sale all the time. They are pushing. If in the give first economy, we need to provide value, build up the right to ask for that business and then ask. And so give first. And that's why content is so valuable, because content allows you to explain your value to your clients. It allows you to show how you are an expert in your field. And it allows you to let your audience understand the value you bring. And again, this is the kind of thing that takes time, folks. It isn't something that you do overnight. And that's, back to the give first economy piece. I think we are also in a pull economy. We've always been in a push economy where the company or the organization who can push out their message the fastest and with the most money wins. Now, the customer has a lot more of the power in the transaction. They have all kinds of information at their fingertips. So they have the opportunity to unlike your page and block you as an organization. And so that's why giving first, providing value and positioning yourself as an expert is more valuable today as a long-term marketing and business strategy than it's ever been before. So that's why you create content. That's why you tell them your story. All right, so I want to talk to you about a concept that Bill and I have sort of created that's called C4 content. Now, C4 content means it's creative, it's consistent, it's consumable, and you have courage, okay? Now, I want to dig into each one of those. I also want to give you the opportunity to see this quote. You want to have the courage to consistently create consumable content. Now, let's dig into each one of these things. And so create, let's do that as the first C, create. One of my favorite quotes in the entire world is the greatest distance in the world is the distance between I know and I do. Most of us on this call know topics that we could create content on. Most of us even know, if we're on this webinar, that we should be creating content. Many of us really have the ability, we have the knowledge to do it. But let's face it, most of us are not doing it. By creating, it means taking action. You actually have to put yourself out there and create a piece of content that you think your customers and prospects will value and will answer their questions. And so that's create. And by creating, I think sometimes we get hung up on that word creative and it's got to be super creative. There's a lot of awesome content out there that's just somebody on a webcam, that's just somebody on their phone, but they're answering a question that people need the answer to. The fact of the matter is, how-to videos are searched on YouTube more than music videos. So if you are answering a question that people legitimately have a need to know the answer to, you don't have to be crazy and creative about it. You just have to create it consistently. This is one of my biggest pet peeves. I think we've all seen that company. Hell, many of us have been that company that we are like, okay, that's it. I'm going to blog, or I'm going to do a Facebook, or I'm going to whatever. And then you go like crazy for a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks. And then, all of a sudden it's October and you haven't posted since April. This is not a judgment. We've all done it. But of the 4 C's, this one is super important. Consistency. Now, to speak to myself, those of you may know, I do a weekly web show on Wednesdays where I interview people, including Paul, from around our industry and around the business world. The web show is called Delivering Marketing Joy, and I put it out every Wednesday. There was one out this morning. And people have come to know to look on Wednesdays. Not only, the other thing is I think it allows you to build credibility with your clients and with your audience, but it also builds in a little bit of a kind of a deadline for yourself. It helps you stay on top of things because you've set this deadline and you're going to meet it. So consistently create, because that allows people, as you build that audience, to know where to find you, to know where to look for you. It can't be an Easter egg hunt. Because as many of you guys know, Facebook, for example, has changed their algorithm. So if you have 100 people who like you on Facebook, only 1 to 3% of those are seeing you and your content organically anyway. So they're, even if they want to see you, they've signed up for the page. If you are not putting it out consistently, they're not just going to happen upon it. So you have to create some consistency so that your audience knows to look for it. That one's a big one. Consumable. When I first got into the video business, people would come up to me and say, hey, I want a 20-minute video about my company. And I would always laugh at them and say, no, you don't. Not if you want anybody to watch it. Now, fast forward to today, and it's become, we're even more ADD. We're even more short-term attention span. And so when I say consumable, it needs to be, there can be longer videos, but generally speaking, you want to go short. Now, since I can't see any of you, I'm going to do this on the honor system, but raise your hand in your office right now if you in the last 2 weeks have started to watch a video, but then looked at how long it was before you decided whether or not you even clicked on it. Everyone raise your hands if you're not a liar. Well, it's something we actually at this point subconsciously do. It's like, gosh, if it's over 3 minutes, it better be really good. Now, that's not to say you can't do longer form stuff. Some of the interviews that I do are definitely longer than that. But here's the thing. The first 30 seconds, the first minute, they better be good or people are going to opt out. So by making consumable content, what I mean by that is sort of micro content, shorter content, things that people can take and grab quickly on their mobile device, see it, and digest it. As a part of that consistency thing, the podcast I've been doing every business day. Every business day is consistent, right? I've created it so that it's somewhere between 7 and 10 minutes. For a podcast, that's actually pretty short. So I've tried to make it consumable. And then, of course, it's about content. It's about creating things that your audience or people that you want to inspire or to educate will actually see some value in. So have the courage to consistently create consumable content. It's C for content creation. So where do you find content? Now, maybe you are looking at this and you're like, okay, all right, I buy it. I should create content. I should be a storyteller. I'm a media company. But where do I come up with this content? And as you can see, I believe you can find it everywhere. Now, Paul and I were talking before the webinar began. I have two teenage daughters, a freshman and a senior, and they're awesome, but they're teenage daughters. And in my experience, I find opportunities to give them lessons in life on a regular basis. Now, I don't know about you, but my teenagers don't always want to hear that right then. So what I've taken to doing is in those moments where I'm like, gosh, this is a lesson I want them to understand. This is something that they need. It's not just about me yelling at them. It's a real lesson. I try to think about that and think about how it translates to business. And here's the thing, a lot of times it does. And if it doesn't to business, it does to personal development. And so I'll create blog posts about conversations or arguments I've had with my teenage daughters. As I said earlier, I'm telling you, this is the best one, is if you have clients that ask you questions on a regular basis, that's a piece of content. Why is there a setup fee? I don't know if anybody else has ever been asked that question, but I think I've been asked more than once. What's the difference between 4-color process and 4 spot colors? Okay, that's a piece of content. So any question that you find yourself answering on a regular basis could be a blog post, it could be a podcast, it could be a video, whatever you're most comfortable with, and we'll talk about each of those in a little bit. But there's a lot of opportunity for content there. The other piece is, you know what, if you wander through life as a consumer, so many times I think there are lessons that I look at when I get poor customer service. Now, you got to be introspective, and each blog or whatever isn't just a bitch session of you complaining about some bad service. But how can you look at that and go, okay, how can I make my business better? How can I, what are the lessons that can be taken from that experience? That's content. So when I say that there's content everywhere, I really mean it. There's opportunities each and every day. So you can find content if you really open your eyes and start looking for it on a regular basis. You can find content everywhere. Now, that doesn't mean it's easy. So it's funny, when Bill and I were creating this was one where we both, I think, those who know me and you're paying attention to me, I create a lot of content. Bill does a really great job, and we're going to talk about his blog here in just a little bit. And I think sometimes people are like, well, gosh, they do it all the time, so it must be easy. Let me just tell you, the struggle is real. There are definitely times where I am struggling to keep up with the deadlines I've created for myself. I'm not sure what episode I released today on Delivering Marketing Joy, because it's Wednesday, right? 70 some, but that means every single Wednesday for the last 70 some weeks, I've put something out as a web show. And there are times where it's a challenge, because that web show, I interview other people. So not only am I struggling with my own motivation and my own schedule, but I'm struggling with somebody else's. I've started doing this daily podcast, the Delivering Marketing Joy podcast. I'm doing that every business day. And I will confess to you that I've got one out today. I have not done tomorrow's yet. So that is something, but I know at some point tomorrow morning, there's got to be one out. So I have to create that sometime between now and then, because I've made that commitment. So I tell you that just to say, look, I'm not sitting here going, gosh, this is a piece of cake and you can do, doing this every day or doing this, whatever. It's no problem. It is a challenge, but it's a challenge that's worth overcoming, because the long-term benefits are real as well. All right, so I want to go over some good content versus some bad content. Now, as I do this PowerPoint in my presentation, live presentation, these actually go up kind of one by one, but I'm going to go through them pretty quickly here. So good content continually gives, bad content persistently asks. What I mean by that is there's so many people out there who are doing social media like old marketing. They are saying, buy from me, buy from me, buy from me, buy from me. And, you know, I want to quote Gary Vaynerchuk, who is an awesome social media guy. He wrote a book called Jab, 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 Right Hook. And the concept is give, 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 ask. And to keep the metaphor going, he said, gosh, if you know a right hook is coming, you can duck. And so that's why you can't constantly be asking, because the client can turn you off. It's constantly dependable versus consistently inconsistent. I think I spent some time on this already, but I'm telling you, this is one of my biggest things. Be consistent. Now, consistent doesn't mean you have to do a podcast every day. It means you have to be consistent with whatever commitment you've made to your audience. If that is every day, if it's once a week, if it's once a month, then just do what you said you're going to do and do it every time. It expresses originality. Again, it's really a matter of just being relevant and authentic to the audience that you want to serve. I know I just sped through a bunch there. Authentic is really the key, I think, because we live in a transparent world. If you start to take on a voice that is not really who you are, it's harder today than it's ever been to maintain that. Sooner or later, the real you is going to come out. And that's, you know, if you've chosen the wrong way, that can be a problem. So be authentic. Maybe it's the better side of you. It's the side of you that you present to your grandma. But it still needs to be you. People still buy from people they like, know, and trust. With social and content, it allows people to do that at scale. And so that's the reason to be authentic. And I jumped out of order here, but audience-centric. And what I mean by that is, again, you're asking questions or answering questions, I should say, that are relevant and interesting and entertaining to your audience. They aren't just entertaining to you. So spend some time and make sure that your content that you're creating is interesting to the people that you're trying to serve. So that's the good and the bad when it comes to content. All right, so just one thing. So this is a little content creation exercise. So if you are one of those people who is surfing the hashtag, if you will, what I'd like for you to do is to tweet out anybody whether it's a blogger, whether it's a podcaster, whether it's a media company, whatever, that you check into regularly to consume their content. Who are you following? Who are you listening to on a regular basis? Tweet that out there with the hashtag social in media WW webinars, and I will check that out. If you're not following me, this would be a great time to check us out too. All right. Sorry, I want to take a drink of water while you guys jumped on your mobile devices and tweeted that out. All right. So going viral. So my slide's a little whacked out here, so I apologize. What I would say is every once in a while, I get a client that says, hey, I want to create a viral video. And of course, the answer is who doesn't, right? But as Bill says, things go viral because 1,000 other things didn't go viral. And what do we mean by that? What I mean by that is simply that in order for something to go viral, obviously it has to be interesting and engaging and probably awesome in some way. It has to be something that has grabbed the attention of people. Well, the best way to do that is not to create one piece of content and push it out and hope for the best. It's to, over time, push out a consistent quality content that builds an audience. It's an audience that will soon share your content. And so it's just one of those things that takes a foundation of, you getting one person or 5 people or 10 people to read your blog before you build the audience that allows something to go viral. So now that you know that this is your name tag, you are a media company, I want to talk to you about some of the ways that you can leverage media, leverage the free tools that are out there where you can use these to further the fact that you're a media company. Business blogging. Here's some of the examples or some of the advantages of business blogging. The reach is nearly unlimited. Again, it takes time to build that audience, but over time, as it gets shared, you get to have unlimited reach. And if you've done it right, it's going to drive traffic to your website, which is how we have ours set up as well. It allows you to share knowledge. At the end of the day, just like we talked about, all those questions that you're answering, you've become an expert. I've met lots and lots of people in our industry, and there are some awesome people who are legitimately experts in creating promotional campaigns that rock. The fact is, most people are not sharing that knowledge, not through blogs or podcasts. We as an industry can do a better job of creating content and telling our industry story. Business blogging is one way to do that. The voice. I love it when Bill talks about this one, and I just want to share his perspective on this. He talks about how people come up to him and they read his blog and they say, man, it's like I could hear you saying it. It allows you to establish a real voice and let people really kind of get to know you. It gives you perspective. It makes you be creative, and it creates curiosity. What I mean by that is, if you're blogging on a regular basis, there's going to be a time where you're about out, right? That back to that t-shirt that says the struggle is real. And so you're going to need to take on some topics that stretches you so that you're not saying the same things over and over again. And by doing that, it gives you a different perspective on any argument, on any case that you're trying to make. It makes you be more creative, and it makes you look at the world from a more curious point of view. Now, our case study on this is Brandivate. That's Bill's website. If you are unfamiliar with Brandivate, I have no affiliation with them, so I'm not trying to sell anything from Bill. But Bill does a great blog, and he targets it, by the way, his niche, right? His niche is the promotional products industry. So he knows his audience. He writes a blog every Monday and every Thursday. That's the commitment he has created, and that's the consistency he brings. And so he writes a blog every Monday and Thursday. Now, when he first started it, he had, 5 people reading it. By now, he gets almost 900 to 1,000 views on his blog per post. Now, some of them are higher than others, just like anything else, right? Some things resonate. And what I think is interesting is some of the ones that really resonate are the ones that are kind of off the wall. He does, lessons you can learn from the Breakfast Club, and business lessons or sales lessons from Roadhouse. Those are actually, I think, some of his higher read blogs because they're fun and they're interesting and they're shareable, right? But he has to build in a lot of lessons to build that audience. And he's really had a ton of success. And he credits this as his #1 most successful thing he's ever done in his career to build his business. Blogging. You can do it. Let's move on to business video. So business video, there's a bunch of advantages to doing video in business. First of all, it's just become easier than ever before. It's become more cost effective. It's become like I say, easier and less expensive. But here's some other things. It helps your SEO. The #1 search engine in the world, most of you know, is Google. Now, some of you may know this and you may not. The #2 search engine in the world is YouTube. So Google owns YouTube. So by video done right on YouTube, it's going to help your search engine optimization. In addition, it gives wider reach. So not only through YouTube, it just kind of tells your story there, but Facebook is actually trying to compete on the video world. So if you natively upload video to Facebook, it increases your reach from a basic Facebook post because they're trying to manage and trying to promote uploading video to Facebook. It allows you to showcase your personality. It is one of my favorite things that happened to me when I first started doing video is my wife and I would go to the grocery store and people would come up to me who I've never met before. And they would start telling me about their families and how their son is going to juvie and whatever. My wife would walk along and keep doing the shopping, and I would stand there and talk to this person, and I'd finally meet up with her 5 minutes later, and she'd say, "Who is that?" And I'd say, "I have no idea. I've never met them before in my life." But because I was on video, they felt like they knew me because I was able to share my personality. And by doing video, it allows you to do that. So when your clients see you on a regular basis, they get to know your personality. And then finally, it leverages laziness. If you are on Facebook on a regular basis, the videos start playing at this point without you even hitting play. Now, maybe you like that and maybe you don't like that, but at the end of the day, it allows you to reach into an audience without them having to do anything. They don't have to read. They don't have to, it's easy, inherently easy for your customers to find you when it comes to video. Now, I'm going to be a little bit narcissistic here and give you a case history on delivering marketing joy. What I've done is created a weekly web show where I interview folks in our industry, authors, entrepreneurs all over the country. I do it over Skype, so it isn't a rocket science production, but that also allows me to not have to worry about location. And I create these interviews. I do 3 questions with each person. I give them one chance to ask me one question. And we do it every week. And what it does is not only does it create awesome content for my company and build my personal brand, but I also leverage other people's platforms. So if I interview Jeff Hayden, who is a best-selling author, and he shares it, well, he shares it to his audience. So I am now exposed to a new audience. But when Jeff, who has been on the show a couple times, releases a book this fall, which he's going to, he'll come back on the show and he will be sharing my audience to sell books for him. And so it's created a win-win platform. And quite frankly, this has been the best tool for me increasing my personal brand within our industry. It's let me promote other people in our industry, and it's been a way to promote me as well. So if you haven't, and just one quick thing, if you haven't subscribed to my YouTube channel, just Kirby Hasseman YouTube channel, do that. And then you can check out the show every week. So let's talk podcasting. Podcasting is essentially, pod stands for play on demand casting. So you create your own radio show, for lack of a better term, that you can do on your own time and people can listen to on demand, right? Play on demand. There's a lot of really cool advantages to doing a podcast. It's intimate. As I mentioned to you earlier, I've started doing a podcast every day, and I'm starting to slowly develop an audience where they're getting to know me. And because I'm talking every day, I'm probably sharing more than I'm sharing on the web show or I'm sharing on my blog because I need to create content every day. So they get a more intimate view of me, and they get to hear my voice and my intonation, and it allows me to share that. It's a playground to yourself almost. And what I mean by that is there just aren't that many. Now, podcasting is really resurged. So there is certainly more people doing podcasting. But again, still in our industry, there aren't that many. So by me having a podcast, it separates me. It was funny because I pushed it out to a few influencers in the industry and asked them to share it. And they said, well, they were giving me feedback on it. But it's challenging for them to give me feedback because there's nothing else in our industry like it. And I'm not saying this to pat myself on the back, so if it's coming off that way, I apologize. But my point about it is you have the playground to yourself. So podcasting is good that way. Distribution is really easy. No barrier to entry is, there's probably some, I guess. The microphone I'm using is like $40. So it's not very expensive. I use SoundCloud. Which is, I think, for a year, $100 or something like that. So it's a low barrier to entry. It's not terribly expensive. And the possibilities are endless. Now, the case study here is Promo Kitchen. Now, for those who don't know Promo Kitchen, it's a not-for-profit organization in our industry whose goal in the industry, there's 2 of them, right, is mentorship and education. So hard not to get behind that. And I'm a chef on Promo Kitchen. And one of the ways that Promo Kitchen has gone to market is they have done a Promo Kitchen podcast. And they've been really, really, really awesome. Interviewed people from around the industry, outside of the industry, and it's usually a half hour to an hour conversation where we can really dig in. And it's been a great way for Promo Kitchen to promote not only our organization, but our efforts in trying to better the industry. And the podcast has been one of the best tools in doing that. All right, so let's dig in on social media, because once you've created content, you need to share it. So I want to talk to you about the 3 Ps of sharing content. So personal. So one of the things I said earlier in the presentation, and I stand by it, and I actually believe it very strongly, is people still in today's day and age buy from people and organizations, but people and organizations that they like, know, and trust. Social media done right allows you to let people like, know, and trust you at scale. It allows people, that going viral thing earlier, it allows more people to get an insight into you if you share things that are personal to you. Now, that being said, we want to keep it professional. That's the second P. Now, and this is one of those things where I always say you got to audit yourself. You want it to be personal, but you have to decide what your level of professionalism is. And, people always say, well, that's my personal Facebook page. Yeah, okay, that's fine. But if you post something that's inappropriate out there, let me just tell you, it's going to affect your professional life. So you just need to know that and be smart about it. So if you're sharing content, it should be personal and it should be professional. And the third P, and this is the one piece that I just wish, like anything, that I could see your faces, because I've done this all over. And one of the things is the third P is positive. Now, just bear with me for a moment, because I've done this presentation all over the country. And this is one of my favorite parts, because I always say, okay, how many of you know people or a bunch of people who are negative on Facebook? Everybody, please, if you're paying attention and still awake, raise your hands. Everybody knows a lot of people on social media who is negative. It's just the nature of the beast. So then my favorite part of this experiment is then I say, okay, how many of you are negative on Facebook? And I will tell you, I have done this presentation, 50 times around the country, and I've never met that one person. Never have I heard anybody say, yes, I'm super negative on Facebook. I've never seen the person raise their hand. So, this is one of those say it out loud moments. Everybody knows lots of people who are negative on Facebook, and nobody is. It's like everybody thinks they're an above average driver. We clearly are not very good at understanding this. So I mentioned it just a minute ago. This is where we need to audit. This is where we need to audit ourselves. You need to look back at the last 10 posts that you've put out on Twitter or Facebook or wherever, and if 4 or more of them can be construed, and that's key, can be construed as negative, then you are perceived a negative person. That's okay if that's what you want, but it needs to be a conscious decision. And here's the kicker, guys. If those posts are political and if they are religious, they could be construed as negative. Now, sometimes I get pushback on that, and I'll be glad to take questions afterwards. Again, it's about positivity. If you're saying, if you happen to be a Christian by nature, and on Easter you say, he is risen, I hope everybody has a blessed Easter, that's not going to be construed as negative. But we all know that there are those religious posts that can be taken that way. So we got to keep it positive. So those are the 3 Ps: personal, professional, and positive. Okay, so we're getting down to, this is why it's at least an hour of time. So I'm going to try and get through a bunch of this stuff quickly here toward the end, so there is some time for questions, okay? So I'm going to do some rapid fire. There's a bunch of social media platforms out there. I'm on most of them, so please feel free to connect with me. but I want to give you some tips here. So Facebook, again, keep it positive. Post natively to Facebook. I think pictures are really powerful on Facebook. And so I would say look for ways to share images on Facebook and engage. Twitter. I'm going to jump over there to Twitter. My favorite thing about Twitter, Twitter's fine for a broadcast medium because I think that's what most people use it for. But my advice to you on Twitter is to use it to engage. Twitter is the internet's biggest cocktail party. That's what it is. So by surfing those hashtags, by, if you want to meet up with, I'm just thinking safety managers, start looking for hashtags that they would use, search those hashtags and enter those conversations and engage with them. Start a conversation like a cocktail party. So just like this, if it's social and media WW webinars, search that hashtag. You can start to see who's on this webinar and you can engage with them. Kirby's a goofball, whatever you want to say, but that's a way for you to connect on Twitter. Search on Twitter is one of the most underutilized tools in my opinion, and it allows you to engage and get into a conversation with people. LinkedIn. I personally have been working much harder on LinkedIn. If you find me on LinkedIn, you'll see I'm sharing a lot of content. I'm trying to engage. I think that if there's anything I take away from all these social media platforms is engagement is key. YouTube is one of the biggest, right? If you aren't, you look, I've got a channel on there. It's a great broadcast medium. I tend to use other social media platforms to promote my content on YouTube. Instagram is really growing. Obviously, it's a picture-based thing. It's one of those things. If you're into photography, if you take great pictures, Instagram's a great place, and it's where the attention graph is going. A lot of people are on Instagram, and it's, in many ways, Instagram's a way for you to get away from some of the negativity on Facebook, and so some people are doing that. Periscope, which is down to the bottom right, is a live broadcasting tool, and there's more of those coming out. There's Meerkat, there's Blab, but there's several people in our industry who are doing a good job on Periscope. You need to be comfortable doing stuff like I'm doing right now. You need to be comfortable sharing live video, live conversation, but it's really cool because it allows people to ask you questions in real time and kind of give you feedback. And so it's a neat tool that I enjoy. And Snapchat, which is the little ghost, the yellow and white, is one of my favorites right now. I think feel free to follow me on Snapchat. I'm trying to do a better job there. I think that's kind of a neat way to kind of showcase to people what's going on in your life, that they can kind of check in at their leisure. And I think that that's another one of those things where if you're trying to reach millennials, if you're trying to reach, I got on Snapchat so that I could talk to my daughters more. So it is, but don't kid yourself. People are having real return on investment on Snapchat. So those are feedback. Please feel free to give me questions on any of those at the end of this. The other thing you might be asking yourself is, gosh, how do I have time? I get that a lot. I think one of the ways that you do that is you have to schedule some stuff. Now, I use Tweet Jukebox personally. It's actually moving to the name Social Jukebox as it starts to get onto other platforms other than Twitter. I love Tweet Jukebox. We also, in my company, use Buffer, but there's Buffer, Tweet Jukebox, Sprout Social, and Hootsuite. There are more of them. I know that. But it allows you to plan out your content, plan out what you want to share, and do that in such a way that you're not sitting by your computer 24 hours a day. Now, from my perspective, I will say, I don't think it lets you off the hook from engaging. If people start replying to you and you ignore them, you've sort of lost the momentum that you're gaining. I think you need to reply and engage with the folks who are engaging with you. So these are a couple tools. Again, if you have questions at the end, I'll be glad to answer them. So let's talk about the keys to success as we start to wrap up. We're almost done. So whatever you decide to do, I want you to make a commitment. I want you to create a schedule and be consistent. I truly don't care whether it's every day, every week, every month. Now, I think it needs to be at least every month. Otherwise, I don't know that you create that momentum, but that's up to you. Schedule it. Be accountable. and become a practitioner. What I mean by become a practitioner, so many of us, we say we're in the marketing business, but there's a lot of people in our industry who are not marketers. We are people who sell marketing products. And that's okay. But if you want to truly be a marketer, I think you have to be a practitioner. Create, create, create. Now, one of the things that I think I sometimes get pushback from on this is they're like, gosh, how can I create all the time? Create some. I think you need to create to become an expert, but you can also share. There are a lot of awesome people in our industry who are already creating content that is shareable, okay? So that content will still be relevant to your audience. So create some for yourself and share other content that is relevant to your audience. Practice that C4. Have the courage to consistently create consumable content. Share 3P. Keep it personal, professional, and positive. The thing about it is you got to think long-term here, folks. This is not something that you push out and you get a return day one. Just like building any relationship, it takes time. So please have the patience to think long-term and to get out there and share content. My parting shot for you is you are the match. Content is the fire, and media is the gasoline. So that is going to wrap up my presentation. I want to give everybody a chance to ask any questions you want, and we can dig in. And I guess my final thought before we open it up for questions is simply I would love it if you would connect with me. I'm trying to build my network within our industry and with the marketing professionals of the world. I'm out there on, and my email's up there, Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, and I've mentioned my podcast a couple times if you want to subscribe to that, and my YouTube channel. So that is what I have for you today. Please fire any questions you have for me.
Thanks a lot, Kirby. It was fantastic. If anyone has any questions, you can type them into the chat box, or you could try to do a *6 and it might unmute you. Can't promise that, but the chat box works for sure.
We cover a lot in this session, and so sometimes it's a little bit overwhelming. But if I think sometimes it's people want to dig in on a specific question. I have no problem with that.
Fantastic. I really appreciate what you said about consistency. Consistency is so important, and that consistency, as you said, for some it doesn't have to be every day.
No.
If you spend an hour a week, you're going to be in the top 98 percentile of our industry on social media. Kirby and Bill and the Promo Kitchen folks, they're very good at social media and they're doing a good job. But many of the top names that you know of people in the industry as viewing them as emerging leaders, they're probably spending an hour or less per week, and a lot of it can be done through repurposing your content. An article you write for your blog, you can put several of them together and write a magazine article and submit it to an industry magazine and get it published. As you produce a video, you can push it out on your other social media. So it's if you think of yourself as you suddenly are now a media company. You own a newspaper, that's a blog. You own a radio station, your podcast. You own a TV station, your YouTube channel.
Yep.
That's pretty incredible stuff. You used to have to be a billionaire to have that sort of media clout.
Well, and I tell you what, Paul, just back to your point about consistency, think about a media company, right? Fox puts out Gotham, right? Now you can watch it on demand, right? But it also is on at the same time every week, so that as an audience member, you know when to go look for it, so that you can make an appointment to view it. You don't have to just have an Easter egg hunt to try and find it every time. That's not how media companies work.
Right. And also you made a great point about we need to have people like us, know us, and trust us. And the knowing and trusting, of course, is very important. There's always that old saw that people buy from people they like. That is true, but even more true than that is people don't buy from people they don't like. And so really allows you to be yourself and become a likable person.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Well,
So it looks like,
we're getting good comments, but no questions. So
yeah, I
I
appreciate that.
thank you again, Kirby. It was great having you on here today. If anyone joined in late, this is being recorded, and the recording will be available on MIPA's website under Wild Wednesday Webinars, and also on MIPA's Facebook page. Which, if you happen to visit MIPA's Facebook page and like it, and help us get to 500 likes this month, or by the 1st of May, we'll be making a $500 contribution to the scholarship fund at PPEF. So
Awesome.
appreciate it if you can do that. I also like to remind everyone that you can get CAS credits as you leave the webinar and are directed to the survey. If you fill in your PIN number, I will submit that to PPAI for you so that you get one CAS credit for today's presentation. And also mark down April 27 for Anything is Possible with Ironman Charles Dugan. I'm sure it will be both motivational and something that you can get from you'll be able to apply to your business life. I do see a question on how do you get a PIN number. If you're a member of MIPA, I can look that up for you. If you're a member of PPAW or any of the other regional associations, your executive director can look that up for you and get that for you. If you've not yet started working on your CAS or MAS, I can send that into PPAI and request that they establish a PIN number for you. Well, I think that's going to wrap it up for us today. Again, thanks everyone for attending this edition of Wild Wednesday Webinars. We look forward to seeing you next month on April 27, and we hope you have a fantastic week. Thanks again, Kirby. It's been great.
Thanks, Paul.